We're live here on the red carpet for the 2024 Disc of the Year Awards. And who do we have here but the Indicator label entry with their beautiful Columbia horror box set. 6 titles and an exclusive hardcase box with gorgeous digipacks housing original poster artwork, vintage images, and of course the set featuring a beautiful hardbound book. Here's the lone Criterion nominee with All That Money Can Buy, the beautiful UCLA restoration of the classic film also known as The Devil and Daniel Webster. Look at the gorgeous exclusive artwork that also continues onto the lovely booklet included. Here's the release everyone expected to get a lot of nominations tonight, but is only nominated in a handful of categories. This is the Warner Archive release of The Searchers from the new Warner Studio 4K restoration of the iconic VistaVision landmark. Look at the gorgeous usage of original poster artwork on this exclusive slipcover. One of the surprise great transfers of 2024. Here's The Crow on 4K UHD with the slipcover from the original pressing. The first from the Arrow video contingent. Here's their 4K UHD limited edition release of The Silence of the Lambs in a beautiful hardcase box with original poster artwork. So here's the full view of the glorious looking package with the slipcover, the actual case inside, the hardbound book, the exclusive art cards and printed material, and a reproduction of the original poster. Next up is the Arrow Video limited edition release of The Great Escape, also in a beautiful limited edition release with slipcover, hardcase box set, exclusive artwork, exclusive disc contents, and hardbound book, in addition to a reproduction of the original poster and a reversible poster with the new artwork. And by crumb, it's the Arrow release of the Conan Chronicles with Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer in a beautiful hardcase set, complete with the full limited edition package of cases, hardbound book, art cards, and reversible original poster reproductions. And lastly, representing the Eureka contingent of nominees, here's another nice release the boys have gotten themselves into. The Eureka release of Laurel and Hardy, The Silent Years, 1927, which of course is the UK equivalent of the amazing US Flicker Alley release here. And this is from the new beautiful restorations from Black Hook Films in association with Lobster Films and the Library of Congress. This is a beautiful limited edition set with gorgeous slipcover, gorgeous artwork, and extensive booklet. But not to be outdone, here's the biggest nominee of the night with a record number of nominations. It's the Eureka limited edition release of the 1927 Paul Linney silent masterpiece, The Cat and the Canary, complete with gorgeous new artwork on this slipcover, reversible artwork on the case with original poster artwork, and an extensive new booklet full of essays, topped off by an extensive disc supplements package including 2 audio commentaries, all for a breathtaking Museum of Modern Art restoration of this classic. And now the moment that only cinephiles and diehard film geeks were maybe kinda sorta waiting for. The 2024 Best Discs of the Year. Hello, and welcome back to this damn full idealistic crusade. This is my annual Best of the Year awards in terms of physical media and disc releases that I have covered or viewed, and of course this will be for the calendar year of 2024. I like to do these as a way to try and highlight certain areas and aspects of disc releases that are of course very important, but also usually don't get as much focus as I think they should, especially in technical areas and also in the field of supplemental features. Plus, I think it's a fun way to try and look back at the calendar year and really focus on titles that were exemplary in the area of presenting films on physical media releases. And so when I do these, it's to not only be a sort of a buyer's guide of titles that I think are worth people's hard-earned money in all the areas of physical media releases, but I think releases like these with exemplary elements really give studios and labels something to aspire to. And as usual, this is me being limited to what I've been able to purchase and view myself. So unfortunately, I can't go through every single release as much as I would want to, because I'm, of course, limited to what my wallet can spring for and how many titles I can actually save up for and get on sale and find various ways to scheme to be able to afford as much as I do, which is still a very small amount compared to a lot of the official review sites. Also, my own focus is primarily on classic films and catalog titles, so there won't be any big, shiny, new modern features with 4K UHDs and Dolby Atmos sound mixes in this, because that's not really my focus. However, there is something to be said about the best releases of the past year, that they not only are dominating the nominations here, but there were several, in fact, two in particular that were so exemplary that I think they rank among the greatest physical media releases of all time. So there were a great number of fantastic releases for 2024, but there were these two in particular that were so astonishingly good that I was frankly bowled over by them, and I'm not often bowled over by a physical media release. It's extraordinarily rare when a release comes along and every aspect is done to the highest absolute standards, and I'm sitting there with my mouth hanging open on the floor, and then all I can do is think, I wish all disc releases were like this. So as I've done in the past, I have a variety of awards for different categories, and they're sort of loosely grouped together. So first, I'd like to start with the award for the best artwork on a physical media release for 2024. This should probably be no surprise if you have seen my review of this release, where I gushed about how amazing the artwork is. But I'm giving it to the Eureka limited edition release of the Paulini masterpiece, The Cat and the Canary, which has this absolutely gorgeous new custom artwork by Graham Humphreys, which gives us pretty much the entirety of the main cast beautifully rendered, with a fantastic usage of color to give the perfect atmosphere that really relays the blend of gothic horror and absolutely madcap, quirky humor that makes this film absolutely one of a kind. And this is just a stunning piece of art. And this film has had a variety of covers over the years because it's been public domain for so long, and most of them were terrible. So for it to finally have fantastic artwork was really something. But I think this is even beyond that. I think this is a stunning image in and of itself, let alone it's beautifully printed on the slipcover and internal case artwork. And so the award for best limited edition artwork or packaging or slipcover also goes to the Eureka limited edition of The Cat and the Canary. This is of course now sold out, but you can still get the standard edition with the same fantastic disc and the same amazing artwork for the case itself. But Eureka always does really fantastic slipcovers. Even though I'm not really a giant slipcover fan, I do enjoy when a label takes the time to make a great slipcover. It is always very impressive, and that's one of the really nice aspects of the Eureka limited editions. But on this one, they really did a sensational job. We have the new artwork and an original poster for the reversible artwork. We have a fantastic booklet and a fantastic and very quirky, darkly humored disc label with a cat actually getting hold of a canary. So I think this is just one of the best packages they've done yet. The award for Best Silent Film Release is a tie between the phenomenal Eureka release of The Cat and the Canary and their release of the Laurel and Hardy films in their Year 1 1927 set. But that is also shared with the US releases of the same incredible restoration masters that were done by Flicker Alley. They've already put out 2 volumes, where Eureka has their second volume coming out relatively soon, but they are the same restorations, but each is important because they each have completely different, unbelievably extensive supplemental feature sections. So each is outstanding, and if you're a big fan of Laurel and Hardy, you really do wind up having to get both just for the exhaustive amount of supplements on each label's release. So this is technically an award that is shared between 3 different releases. If you count the Flicker Alley, Laurel and Hardy Year 1 and 2 releases, along with the Eureka Year 1 Laurel and Hardy release and the Eureka release of The Cat and the Canary. The award for Best Film Restoration is also a shared award because there were some absolutely sublime pieces of film restoration throughout the whole calendar year of what we've seen turn up on disc releases. But there were three that I think just kind of outshone everybody else simply due to the amount of work on limited elements producing breathtaking results. So this is a shared award between, again, the Eureka release of The Cat and the Canary, the Eureka and Flickarelli releases of the Laurel and Hardy shorts, and I'd also like to include the UCLA restoration and Criterion Blu-ray release of All That Money Can Buy, also known as The Devil and Daniel Webster, which was a painstaking restoration that is finally getting the film back to really as close as you can possibly get to its original premiere version, and it's a stunning piece of restoration work. The award for Best Audio Restoration is another shared award between the really incredible audio restoration work that was done on All That Money Can Buy, again, part of the UCLA restoration, and this is a very intricately produced soundtrack for the time period that had much of its nuances lost on past preservation masters that were really rough because they had to deal with such problematic elements and different edits and mixing and matching different sources. So this was another major effort. But I'd also like to spotlight the Arrow video release of The Great Escape on 4K UHD, which actually did have a new transfer and mastering of the film's original mono mix. And so this is the first time the film's original soundtrack has sounded really good since the Laserdisc era, as every version since the Laserdisc era has had various mastering attempts that actually made it sound worse than the MGM Laserdisc from the early 1990s. This new rendering actually sounds perhaps even better than that Laserdisc audio, which was a complete shock to me, as I figured we were just going to be stuck with the film sounding lesser as it had for a great number of years. So that was a real surprise. So again, I think that's why this has to be a shared award between the Criterion release of All That Money Can Buy and the Arrow release of The Great Escape. The award for Best Encoding on a Blu-ray disc, I think, has to go to the Eureka release of The Cat and the Canary, which is maxed out for a Blu-ray disc. It is a phenomenal encoding job with extraordinarily high bitrate that is consistent throughout the feature, and this is a Blu-ray disc that is having to share space with a significant supplemental features package and commentary. So I think it is a phenomenally well-encoded Blu-ray disc and really shows what you can do with attention to detail and care in mastering a single disc release with a whole feature film, a great amount of supplements and additional audio tracks, and getting it all in there on one disc without ever sacrificing quality by having a lesser encode or wasted disc space or having lower bit rates. There's really no excuse for having an improper or lesser encode, because all it takes is a little bit of time and care and effort to get things right, and so frequently that doesn't happen. So when I come across an absolutely stuffed single disc Blu-ray release with a maxed out bitrate throughout, it gives me a cause for celebration, because that so rarely happens that you have a disc release that is this exceptional and this loaded with supplements, again, on a single disc, and for a silent film, which frequently they don't get the greatest love in the technical department either. So seeing this have a maxed out bit rate for a Blu-ray disc really was, it was a fantastic sight to see, and I think it easily is the best encoded Blu-ray disc of 2024. The award for Best Encoding on a 4K UHD release is another shared award, but actually goes to the same winner. It is, of course, the incredible Fidelity in Motion, who is really the best in the business in terms of disc encoding. So the award for Fidelity in Motion is split between their efforts on the Conan Chronicles set with Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer, where you have multiple discs that have tons of supplements and different cuts of films and multiple audio tracks with a consistently high bit rate throughout, and the extras are even sharing the disc with the feature on a single UHD disc for Conan the Destroyer, and never once is there anything suffering from any sort of encoding issues. Then I think you also have to look at Fidelity's work on the Arrow release of The Silence of the Lambs, which has an extensive amount of supplemental materials, plus a ton of older legacy extras. So hours upon hours plus multiple commentaries, all sharing the same UHD disc with the MGM 4K master of the film, with all of the transfer kinks worked out, and again, multiple audio tracks, and the film has a maxed out bit rate, and nothing on this disc suffers from having countless hours of material on a single UHD disc, all sharing that same disc. So this is another phenomenal encoding job. And then lastly, I think you have to look at the release that actually is breaking barriers between the world of boutique labels and the world of studio labels, not really taking the same level of care into consideration. And that, of course, is the Warner Archive release of The Searchers, which has encoding by Fidelity in motion. So this is FIM really getting into the studio realm more than they have before. There's been a couple times where studios have had Fidelity or an outside encoder actually work on a particular release, but this is such a high-profile catalog title, and being handled by the Warner Archive, getting Fidelity to do the encoding was the icing on the cake. Unfortunately, I think the encoding is probably the best aspect of this release, which has a number of really glaring flaws because this was unfortunately a master that came from the Warner Studio division. But the archive doing extra work to make this release better and bringing in Fidelity in motion to do a fantastic encoding job makes this the one UHD release with a Warner shield on it, with any sort of Warner ties. This is the only Warner UHD that has a great encoding job from what I've seen. So this having a great encode and being from any Warner entity is a major moment for us who have been begging and hoping studios would actually start to care about the encoding of their physical media releases. The award for Best Improvement using the same pre-existing video master that has been used by other releases goes to another tie between Arrow releases this time. So I'm giving it to the Arrow release of The Great Escape, which uses the pre-existing MGM 4K master that's been used by Criterion and Kino Lorber, but this time gives it an even better presentation, plus Dolby Vision HDR, and a new restoration of the film's mono mix, in addition to a plethora of extras. But I think you also have to give it to the Arrow release of The Silence of the Lambs, which again uses the pre-existing MGM 4K master. Criterion and Kino have previously done releases, and the Kino 4K UHD release was notorious for having a really bad color space error that affected the whole opening reel or so of the film. Plus, it didn't even have the original audio track. It merely carried a down mix of the defective remix. So getting those issues addressed with a far better encoded presentation of the film to begin with, and having a far more comprehensive supplemental features package, I think makes this vault ahead of that release, especially since it was a defective release to begin with. So the award for Best Improvement over flawed previous video masters and releases is another shared award, because there were several titles that had just major overhauls, whether it was the same master or a new master, that addressed long-standing problems that made past releases not only really questionable, but in some cases so deplorable that it was better to just avoid those Blu-ray releases entirely. So, of course, first would be the Arrow release of The Silence of the Lambs, correcting the errors of the past. Then their release of The Great Escape, handling the 4K master better, handling the original mono audio better, and adding Dolby Vision HDR. But perhaps even bigger than those two releases would, of course, be the Arrow release of the two Conan films, correcting the horrible issues of the Universal HD masters, which made the Blu-ray releases, particularly for Conan the Barbarian, I think completely unwatchable. And that was a film that I was only watching on Laserdisc and DVD for all of these years because the HD master was so horribly bad in its color timing, excessive grain management, and of course did not have the original audio mix of the film. But what is probably the greatest surprise of the year is the release of The Crow on UHD. And of course it was distributed by Paramount, which didn't give us any sort of hope that this would have a great transfer. And somehow this did have a great transfer. This is a film that's been cursed for years and years, well, really decades, with problematic video masters, from the color timing to excessive grain management to the aspect ratio. Fans have tried releases from all over the world on both DVD and Blu-ray trying to find something that was better. This was another film that I just didn't bother with any of the modern releases, and when I wanted to watch it again, I just watched it on Laserdisc or DVD because I knew how screwy or poor the HD masters were. So you had to make a compromise, whichever version you chose. And so for this to come out with not a lot of fanfare, and suddenly this is the first great transfer it's had since the standard definition era. That was just mind-blowing. So this is really due to the folks at Lionsgate putting in extra effort and trying to make sure that their new masters are up to snuff on the 4K UHD titles they're doing. So I think this award really has to go to all 4 of these titles, but it would be harder to choose just one because really it would have to be split between The Crow and the release of the Conan films for having to correct such massive transfer issues that we were stuck with for a great number of years. Next, for the supplemental features category, we have the award for Best Commentary Track. This is almost always the hardest award it is for me to figure out a winner, or at least a group of winners if it's a tie, because commentaries, I think, are the most undervalued of all of supplemental features, and when done right, they are, a film school and a commentary track. They are an incredible experience, and there are so many great commentators out there who, time and time again, do fantastic work. And unless you're a physical media fan or a commentary geek, it really just kind of, I think, is lost on a lot of people because most people don't really go into the commentaries. They sort of wade into the special features. They may watch all the video ones, but commentaries are usually the thing that gets the short end of the stick. And so I always want to try and spotlight commentaries more because I think it's such a brilliant form for critical discourse. Again, there were some phenomenal commentaries this year. So I think this does have to be split. I think the first winner would be for the Paul M. Salmon commentaries on the Arrow Conan set, because not only is Salmon an expert on the Conan films, he was there during the original productions. He had on-set experience. He wrote extensive articles and was involved in the promotional campaigns for the film. So he has all this firsthand experience, and so it's pretty much up there with his Blade Runner commentaries and materials. So that in and of itself puts them in a special category. But then you also have to look at the unbelievable amount of fantastic commentaries that are tied to the Laurel and Hardy releases from both Eureka and Flicker Alley, because these are short films averaging 15 to 20 some odd minutes each. That means that you have to have multiple commentaries for all the different shorts and a bunch of different people to come in. But what I didn't expect is for all of the films to have their own commentaries, and for the Eureka and Flicker Alley sets to each have their own separate program of audio commentaries. So, for example, in this Eureka set, you're not getting one commentary, you're not getting, say, maybe 5 or 10 commentaries, you're getting 17 commentary tracks. And then you've got a completely different program of commentary tracks on the Flicker Alley versions of these same restoration masters. So you're getting a massive amount of additional critical and historical commentary on these incredible treasures, and that just makes this overall package even greater. But then you've also got to look once again at the stupendous release of The Cat and the Canary from Eureka, which has not one but 2 brand new fantastic commentaries, and neither commentary just repeats the same information. It's very difficult to have multiple commentaries on a film and not have a lot of the same ground be covered. So the commentaries actually complement each other very, very well, and that's a very difficult thing to do, and each one is worth your time. So on that release, you're getting not one but 2 fantastic commentaries. So that's why I think all 3 releases have to really be looked at together, as each having a fantastic amount of information crammed into multiple brand new commentary tracks. The award for Best Supplemental Features Package on a release is another that's extraordinarily difficult because there were several releases that were absolutely I mean, to say that they were packed to the gills with features doesn't even begin to cut it. So this one is another where I can't say just simply one, so I'm going to break it down into several subcategories. So the award for Best Supplemental Features Package on a Blu-ray disc release of a single film is without question The Cat and the Canary, which is absolutely stuffed with supplements, including not one but two audio commentaries. And all of this is fantastic material, even if you're a longtime fan of the film and already know a lot about it. The best supplemental features package on a Blu-ray release of multiple films is, without question, the Laurel and Hardy sets, whether you've got the Eureka set as I have here, or you've got the Flicker Alley sets. They are using the same restorations, but each label did completely unique, fantastic extras for their releases. The award for Best Supplemental Features Package on a box set of films, I think, has to go to the beautiful Indicator Columbia Horror set, which goes to their usual incredible high standards of finding and curating a phenomenal extras package with new commentaries as well that will really give you a crash course, and not just the films and their production, but the world of the films and their stars and their crew. So each Indicator set is like a reference work that you just pull off the shelf, and then you watch the films, and then you dig into the hours upon hours upon hours of supplements. Then the award for Best Supplemental Features Package on a 4K UHD release is another tie, this time I think between the Arrow release of the Conan Chronicles and the Arrow release of The Great Escape. Both of these have a mixture of brand new supplements and a ton of legacy supplements. So each of these sets will take the viewer, obviously you watch the films first, and then it will take you multiple repeat viewings to go through each and every supplement, and of course the multiple commentary tracks on each release. So each of these is stuffed with hours upon hours upon hours of supplements, so much so that I don't think any other UHD really compares between these two. Then the award for Best Individual Supplemental Feature is another that's always difficult for me to try and select a winner, but I think this Arrow decision really edged it out further. And so I think the award has to go to their inclusion of the 1988 Great Escape 2 television miniseries as part of their limited edition of The Great Escape. But the reason why I'm selecting this is that they not only had a new 4K scan to work with of a 3-hour plus miniseries with some really notable elements, but they also took the time to just go ahead and present it as an SDR UHD, which is a particular decision that most labels probably wouldn't do due to the expense of manufacturing UHDs over Blu-rays. And this miniseries did, just previous to this, get a UK Blu-ray release. So this is a fantastic bonus in this set that they really didn't have to do, and they went to the greater expense of making a brand new UHD with a really good transfer of a film that's been very obscure and rather hard to get. And it also saves you the expense of purchasing and importing the pricey UK Blu-ray release, which of course won't be as good as this UHD rendering. So this and the Great Escape limited edition set, really, I think it's just an extra decision that they took that had such attention to quality by going ahead and upgrading this to a UHD disc, which could have just been thrown on as an extra Blu-ray, or some might have tried to just cram it in the Blu-ray disc of supplements in just standard HD. So apparently the UK Blu-ray was coming from this same new scan, which must have been done at 4K resolution, and so Arrow took it upon themselves to spend the extra money and present it on a UHD disc and SDR, and that is the real draw of picking up the limited set, because this UHD disc will not be part of the standard release. So now we move into the big major awards. So the award for Best Audio Quality I think is another that has basically two distinctions. So I would give it to the Eureka release of The Cat and the Canary with its beautiful new score and a really lovely dynamic 5.1 presentation. So it's not only a beautiful new recording of a silent film score accompaniment, but it's even done in multi-channel with great dynamics. So that's something you don't get on a lot of silent film releases. But then if we're talking about actual audio presentations of sound films, obviously, I think the award would probably have to go to the Arrow release of The Great Escape for doing new work on the mono mix with rather impressive results, which is something I just never expected to see. I thought we would have the same versions of the compromised mono presentation that we'd had all these years. So that for me was a really welcome thing to hear. The award for Best Picture Quality on a Blu-ray release is again split between the incredible restoration of The Cat and the Canary and the incredible restoration of the Laurel and Hardy shorts. Both of these are also beautifully encoded and presented on these Blu-ray discs with such a level of quality that you will find yourself just being lost in the imagery. And for films of this vintage with incredible element issues to overcome that have had, such incredibly all over the place presentations, especially all the crummy public domain versions and uploads, these are just absolute revelations. So it's just an absolute marvel that we have both of these in this level of quality. The award for Best Picture Quality on a 4K UHD release is another that I could select a number of titles and just give that one the award. But I think with one slight exception on a very tiny color error that happens on one shot for a second, I think it has to go to the Conan Chronicles set, especially as amazing as Conan the Barbarian looks, again, outside of that one tiny little flash for a second. Conan the Destroyer is arguably even more impressive on the outset because it was shot by the legendary Jack Cardiff, and it was always a very handsome looking film, even in standard definition watching on a CRT. That's really the greatest aspect of that film. In spite of it being a far lesser and a letdown after the incredible strengths of the first film, the visual splendor is such that it does at least make the viewing experience more enjoyable, and being able to marvel at it in a brand new 4K restoration with Dolby Vision HDR in your home looking this stunning with a great encode as well. I mean, it's just, that's when the 4K UHD format is at its best. And as many Marvel moments as I had with UHDs this year, I think visually nothing really hit that same Marvel level to the degree that I got with the two Conan films on the Arrow set. The award for Blu-ray Disc of the Year is another split. This is going to the Eureka release of The Cat and the Canary, and sharing the award with the incredible Laurel and Hardy sets from both Eureka and Flicker Alley. These are absolute must-own titles that you will watch time and time again. These are titles that, frankly, if you own a Blu-ray player, you need some form of these. You need both of them. Again, the Laurel and Hardy set, you can get either the Eureka or the Flicker Alley versions. But these are just mind-bogglingly incredible. The award for 4K UHD of the year, again, there are so many fantastic contenders, but looking at all aspects of a physical media release and also looking at value for money in terms of what is the actual price tag, how, what are the amount of supplements you're getting with this release, what is the overall value of the entire package. I think taking that into consideration, there's really one answer, and that is the Arrow video release of The Great Escape in its limited edition package, which, even though it's a Region B import, is only going for about $34.99. And for having the best rendering of the MGM 4K Restoration Master with a new rendering of the original mono mix that is far better than anything we've had in ages, an exhaustive amount of new and legacy supplements spread onto an entire Blu-ray disc in and of themselves, being given beautiful new artwork and a full book and poster and everything, and topped off by the inclusion of the Great Escape 2 miniseries, which is given its own UHD disc, so you're able to watch the entire 3-hour plus 1988 television miniseries in 4K resolution. I mean, all of that for only $34.99 is absolutely incredible. And I think it further shows that releases that charge that much or more and are not giving you anywhere near that amount of value for money certainly don't deserve those higher inflated price tags, when Arrow Video, even with a release that you're having to import, can do all of this in a limited set and only charge so much. So that's why I think the Great Escape release is really, I don't think anything comes close for amount of value per dollar spent. It is just, it's stunning. It's the type of release that you wish every great classic film could get. The award for Best Box Set or Set of Films for the year of 2024 is another where I think the winner is clear. So I think the best set release from 2024 is, again, the mind-blowing Laurel and Hardy sets, whether you get the Eureka volumes or you get the Flicker Alley volumes, or better yet, you get all of them for all the incredible supplements. Again, these are an incredible value for money because they're not terribly expensive for the massive amount of material and iconic films that you get in each volume. But then you get hours upon hours of brand new supplements and vintage audio interviews. They are incredible packages, whether you get the Flicker Alley or the Eureka volumes. But the restoration work on top of all of that, it's just absolutely the treatment that these incredible works of art that still remain just as gut-bustingly funny as they were in 1927. It's the love and care that these films have always deserved and never gotten to this degree before. These are some of the most timeless, iconic treasures of all of film comedy. They're still some of the greatest comedies ever made from one of the greatest comedic teams there ever was. These should be seen and viewed by everyone. They belong in a museum. These releases are that museum quality, and that's why it is easily the best set release of the year for 2024, regardless of if you've gone for the Eureka or Flicker Alley versions. And since they have their own fantastic supplements packages that are unique to each, it's actually advisable to get both labels releases. So now we come to the big one, the overall best disc of the year for 2024, regardless of formats, the one release that so exemplifies what physical media is and is supposed to be, in not only being great releases worth your hard-earned money, showing great respect for cinematic works, but also preserving film culture and film history, not just for us, but for future generations, and releases that managed to do every single thing right. There's not a single aspect of the release that has a corner cut or has some flaw that you find or some little quirk or something that could have been done better or is a sign that it wasn't done with the utmost level of care at 100% across the board. That rarely happens, where you get a release that has not only the love and care put into it, but has no stone unturned and is as good as it possibly could be. The kind of release that gives you hope for the future of physical media, the release that makes you excited about physical media again, and excited for not only film preservation, but for a film to be rediscovered by people on this new release, or a release that you can actually suggest to people or buy as a gift and give to people, a release that you can, go outside and shout from the rooftops because it's that great. I don't get to do that hardly ever. It doesn't happen for me. It's not that I'm trying to nitpick or find negatives in things, but also, admittedly, I know too much about some of this stuff. So when something isn't quite there or something isn't quite at 100%, it's going to jump out to me. So it's extraordinarily rare for me to encounter a physical media release of a film that is not only doing everything right, is not only perfect, but actually gets me excited about film preservation and presentation and how it all works in the consumer marketplace and how the physical media market is going. Almost never do I encounter a disc release that not only am I that happy with, but I am ecstatic about. And again, I just want to go outside and shout it from the rooftops. So for me, I think the best disc of the year of 2024 is a no contest winner. The best disc of 2024 is Eureka's release of The Cat and the Canary, a film that has had restorations in the past, but also just endless amounts of terrible public domain releases. A film whose importance to the cinematic medium is so extreme that it is really one of the founding cinematic building blocks of the horror genre. It does not get discussed as much as it should, and this restoration by the Museum of Modern Art is absolutely staggering. But Eureka's presentation of this film on Blu-ray, which was their first release entering into the American market, so this is a release that you don't have to import, so it's not region locked. This is so sublime in all of the technical aspects of showing extraordinary attention and care and love and affection for one of the great silent films, but also producing an incredible supplemental features package with hours upon hours of new vital material, 2 brand new audio commentaries, beautiful new artwork with a limited slipcover and a fantastic booklet with great essay. And they were selling this for around $20, which practically meant they were giving this away. I actually bought this release to give to people. I bought extra copies, and I encouraged anyone to give this a chance because you couldn't really lose at only $20. And even though the limited edition is now sold out, you still get the same phenomenal disc and artwork in the standard edition, the same incredible supplemental features package, and it's still so absurdly inexpensive that they are practically giving this away. This is a disc that if you own a Blu-ray player, you need to have. If you call yourself a horror fan, you need to have this. If you're a silent film lover, this is a release that will put you over the moon. It's so astonishingly well done. This is one of the very, very few releases that I encountered that is not only filled with adoration for the film itself, but just absolute perfection in every aspect of physical media across the board, from the technical side to the disc encoding to the supplemental features package to the artwork to the booklet to the very affordable price point. And this was Eureka entering into the US market for the first time and coming in with what I think is one of the greatest physical media releases of all time. So that is why, for me, I think there is no release in the year of 2024 that comes anywhere near to the astonishing quality and affordability and value for every cent that you spend on it than the Eureka release of Paul Linney's 1927 silent masterpiece, The Cat and the Canary. This is one of the greatest physical media releases I have ever encountered, and thus I think it's one of the greatest physical media releases of all time. So that means when trying to select the award for Best US Label for the year of 2024, I found it very difficult to say that anyone was as good as Eureka. They're new to the U.S. market, of course, but they are carrying on their same level of excellent work, doing their usual slate of a few releases at a time, and they're having to slowly transition into the U.S. market, just like Indicator and Arrow have done, where they're only able to do certain films due to licensing, so some of their releases are U.S. exclusive. Most of their releases are still done in both countries or are UK exclusive. So they're having to start small. But they came here to the US market with their same quality business model and managed, as practically their first release, to release one of the greatest discs of all time. So for that, I think that puts them on the map. And so for that, I think they actually wound up being the best US label of 2024. So for best UK boutique label, I think it's a split award between the incredible efforts of Indicator, as always, the incredible releases from Eureka, who has just again entered the US market, but also Arrow Video is really leading the charge for catalog UHD releases and sets like no one else is. And so they really deserve credit for pushing that field and doing some things that other labels are trying to get into, or they're doing UHDs, but no one seems to have the knack or frankly the budget or as many studio connections as Arrow has been able to achieve with their releases. So Arrow is really pushing the limited edition set and the 4K UHD for catalog titles with a big supplemental package on a boutique release. They're really the ones pushing that more than anybody. So I do think it's a sort of split for best UK label between Indicator, Eureka, and Arrow, but you do have to give the extra consideration to Arrow being the ones that are really leading the charge for the UHD format. So the award for overall best label of 2024 is, I think, for the reasons I've already highlighted, I think it's a shared award between Arrow Video and Eureka for all of their incredible efforts. And this is by no means to say that the other boutique labels are lesser or didn't do incredible work. I'm just limited to the releases I've been able to purchase and see, and I just wanted to highlight the fantastic elements that I've seen in certain labels' efforts. And that's why I do a sort of loose best label of the calendar year. But there are so many fantastic labels, both big and small, all across the world now, that it's difficult to even keep up with what releases are coming out or who's got what or things like that. So there are still a great number of labels I've not been able to try yet, and hopefully I can be able to afford more releases in the next year. But I just had to highlight the incredible efforts of both Arrow and Eureka in particular fields this year, because I think they really had some incredible achievements in 2024. So there you have it, my awards and selections for what I feel are the best in physical media and disc releases for the calendar year of 2024. Again, I do these as a means of highlighting exemplary elements in physical media releases that I encounter, and whether I'm reviewing a disc or not at the time, when I encounter really exceptional work in all of these different fields that are all part of the physical media realm, I do want to champion and highlight them where possible. So that's the whole reason why I started doing these awards. And again, I'm unfortunately limited to what I've been able to purchase and watch and review on my own. So as much as I would love to be able to consider everything, this is just my own limited perspective of what I've been able to see in terms of titles. I also try to do this as a sort of buyer's guide if you're looking to pick up some really great physical media releases or try some films that are maybe new to you, but you want to actually know if your hard-earned money is being well spent, or you're looking for a disc with a really great transfer or great audio or a really great supplemental features package that's got hours and hours to delve into. So that's another reason why I like to do these, and why I think it's a good idea to look back at the highlights or some really great elements of the past year of releases. So as always, I hope my babbles about studios and labels and physical media releases has been at least somewhat fun and informative. Again, these are merely my own opinions and choices from what I've been able to view and look at in terms of 2024 releases. But again, I think these standouts are so extreme that there's not really anything else that comes close or compares in the same way. And if anything, I hope this video encourages people to check out the absolutely exemplary, beyond exemplary releases of The Cat and the Canary and the unbelievably timeless early films of Laurel and Hardy. These are extraordinarily affordable. I think they should be owned by every serious physical media collector or film enthusiast, and they're so affordable and so value packed that you just can't go wrong. So that's why they're also the standouts for the year. And again, especially The Cat and the Canary is such such a bright light in the world of physical media that this is the disc I look back to now of, what a Blu-ray release can be and should be. This is the release I have to point to now when people ask me, what's a great disc release? What is a great Blu-ray release like? So that's why I do these awards, and this release of Eureka's is so outstanding that it's really the only time I've been reviewing a disc release, and then and there, before I'm even finished with all of the supplements, I'm sitting there thinking, I think I'm currently watching the disc of the year, and the year's not even over yet. And I'm also thinking, this is one of the best disc releases I've ever been fortunate enough to actually watch and experience. This is better than I could have ever hoped for. This is outstanding. And so I just wanted to highlight that and a lot of the other fantastic releases and elements of physical media catalog titles for the year of 2024. So as always, please do keep supporting both studios and boutique labels by buying films on disc in order to help keep both physical media and film culture alive. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching.